Hopefully you got a new booklet. I already lost mine. Aha. No, I got it. I just make sure I put this where it belongs. Don't worry, there's nothing wrong with me yet. Put that there. And that way later on somebody can tell me, you know that your notes are in your Bible. You know, that's all you got to do is say this smart. So, okay, good. If you didn't get a booklet, Ethan has extras. He'll be glad to give you one. Or if you want an extra, you're welcome to get those from him. So let's spend a little time here in our little booklet. A couple of things about the way we're going to approach the book of Proverbs. The first thing is we're going to look at it topically. A lot of people get frustrated with Proverbs a little bit because it flips-flops back and forth between topics over and over and over. Well, so you've got two problems. Either you deal with the topics as they flip back and forth, or you do it topical, which means you're flipping from passage to passage to passage to passage to passage. So you've got a choice on which way you want to look at it. But in your little booklet, if you'll just browse it a moment, I'll introduce the booklet to you. Doing it topically offers you a couple of things if you're interested in examining it more closely. But when you're looking for certain topics or certain ideas, you can thumb through your book and find all the passages that Proverbs says about it. So if you open to your page 2, you'll notice we're going to start with wisdom, of course. And we have then it broken down into sections. The exhortation to seek wisdom, there you can see all your passages. And we'll be following them from left to right if you're following along in your booklet, because we're going to go from, the chapter 1 through to the end of the book as you go through it. They're all put in order for you. So then we have other topics under wisdom. And then every once in a while you'll have a large capital setting on page 4, for example, where it says our emotions and attitudes. So there you have all your passages in Proverbs about emotions and attitudes. Then we have a section on our character. So then we look at that, and that includes, of course, in the little box on page 5, pride and boasting and some of these different topics that we're going to be looking at under our character. Then, as you might turn your page with me, you have on page 7, our words, or the idea of self-control over our speech, things that we say. A topic of gossip, for example. We have other topics of good speech contrasted with people who use foul speech or evil speech, and so on. Our page 8 offers the idea of our family life, choosing a good wife, sexual sins, disciplining your children, etc., fall in that category. Works and finances, the idea of laziness comes into play, and then how you deal with money. Unjust gain and such come under that heading that you have there on your page 9. On your page 11, we have friendships, how to conduct yourself with friends, how to choose friends in the world as well as those that are closer to you, and how to treat other people then on your page 11 then. So we even have a little section on treating other people. If you go to your page 13 with me a moment, you have our society, so there's even a section on government, injustice, and giving, and things like this that we find under our society. Page 14, you have our government, in this case, of course, kings and other governments. And then on page 15, you have, as kind of a concluding section, religion, and how you deal with God in a variety of ways. And then it finally ends with literary elements, which basically is saying all the passages that you didn't have a category for get stuck at the end. Every verse of Proverbs is represented in your booklet. So we will be looking at every verse of Proverbs as we go along, but we are going to look at it topically. So if you want to keep up, you'll need your little booklet to follow along the passages, and of course I'll be putting them up on our board as we look at them. Now, curiously, as we look at Proverbs, there's several ways to actually study it. The way I study it and the way I teach it are probably two worlds apart. We can get very wrapped up in the particulars, little things. And we're going to, of course, touch on some of those things as we go along, just to kind of make reference to what we're talking about. But when you do it that way, too immensely, you get bogged down and you're stuck. And in a sense, you know me, I can talk forever on a subject, so we'll be there forever. But we're not going to do that. We're going to try to keep them in context, and we're going to try, of course, to follow the ideas that we're looking at, because the whole point of this is to find simple wisdom, and the wisdom of God in these particular issues. So we're going to be doing it that way. So we're going to actually start this morning right here on page 2, and we're going to be looking at wisdom. Also, a note there just before that in your booklet, you'll see some asterisks once in a while. That means that the passage is used under 2 different topics. And if you see a question mark, it just simply means exactly that. It didn't know exactly how it fit, but it seemed to fit in a certain place. So when we get to them, we'll kind of see how that works out, but every once in a while you'll see that in your booklet. Hopefully your booklet will be supportive to you. If you're interested in looking up certain topics, then you can do so if you're actually looking for what Proverbs has to teach you on any given area. So let's begin, and I want to get my flipper here and see if that way I don't have to stand all the way over here all the time. Let's see how that works. Now, all right, let's get started right here. That's in your booklet, and we just talked about that. So let's go to our passages. So up on our board, we'll have the section that we're working on, and we're going to start right here with wisdom. Now, I know in the introduction we spent a lot of time talking about wisdom already, and we defined it pretty well, I hope anyway, and we also defined the idea of knowledge and the connection between knowledge and wisdom. Then, of course, we also asserted the fact that we believe, if we're Christian, we believe God's right, and he knows what he's talking about. So, of course, we're going to be following that line of thinking, as does Solomon in the proverb writing. So, he believes in God, whether he followed him very well or not, and he, of course, writes along that standard, that idea, and the idea of wisdom and it coming from God and how it's beneficial to us. Like manner, we're also, because we're in our age and not in the proverb age, we're going to try, of course, as we go along, to apply it to Christianity in one way or another as we go along. So there's our passages, as you can note, if you just to kind of get us going. But we are going to go from left to right on our board up here, and we'll follow the chapter. It's chapter 2, the chapter 3, chapter 4, 10, 14, and 15. That way we're going through the book. If you're thumbing through it, you can kind of keep up. If you're wanting to look at it in something other than the English Standard Version, which is what I'm going to be using up on the board. All right, so let us begin with Proverbs chapter 2, 1 through 15. My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, make your ear attentive to wisdom and incline your hearts to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the ways of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equality, every good path, for wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech, who forsake the path of unrighteous to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perversiveness of evil. Men whose path are crooked and who are devious in their ways. Okay, so as we start out, let us note a couple of interesting things here as we begin here in the first section. Part of seeking wisdom. How do you find silver? You go find it somewhere. You look for it. When the gold rush began in California, if you wanted to participate in the gold rush and you lived in Missouri, what did you do? You moved to California. Very simple. You followed the gold rush. So if you wanted the gold, you had to go get it. Now, you can't sit in Missouri and mine gold in California. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. And so if you don't stay in Missouri, you got to find something else, or wherever you happen to be at. But so they had what they call as a rush for it. And notice that our writer, Solomon, offers the idea, you all wisdom is not just going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You're going to have to go dig for it to a certain amount. And he's going to offer very strong wisdom. But he's also going to tell us that says, you're not going to appreciate my wisdom until you do something with it. You see, you got to work with me. You got to use what I'm telling you before you're going to know it works. And this is a truth about wisdom. Oftentimes we discount it because we've never tried it, you see. I was talking to a fellow the other day, he said, well, I don't believe the Bible to be true anyway. I said, have you ever read it? He said, well, no. I said, well, then how do you know? I just want to know, how do you know that it's not true? Well, I've heard, or it was this or that, or whatever else, you see. But he had no personal experience with the idea of whether he thought it was true or not true. He'd never read the thing in the first place. So to me, it's a curiosity that you're going to denounce something and throw it out based on no information, whatsoever. So the curiosity is the same with wisdom. If we're going to get wisdom, if we're going to walk in the way God's saying walk, then we're going to have to do some digging. We're going to have to work at it to some extent. And part of that is not that he's not going to give us the answer. It's the part of it is, are you willing to apply it and see if it's going to work for you? If we bring it into the New Testament, we can do that with a lot of things. If you want more love, then I would suggest you start with 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 8, and simply do what it says. If you're willing to do what it says, then you're going to discover more love, because that's the passage on love. And it says, be kind and be patient and be this and be that. And so you can develop, if you will, a more loving attitude toward anyone, whether it be your wife, your husband, your children, or anybody else, if you in some way apply those things. I don't know how many counseling sessions I've had with young couples who are struggling with, not just young couples, old couples too, that are struggling with their marriages or whatever, and I set them down with 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, and I never get past the first point. And so I say, okay, go home and try that. How? And I say, what do you mean? It's not that difficult. You just be kind to your wife. And they say, what? Really? You mean I have to be kind to her? And then you wonder what's wrong with their marriage. You would expect that if you're going to be kind, you can be kind to the postman. You can be kind to the lady down at the grocery store. You can be kind at your work co-workers because you don't want to lose your job, but you can't be kind to your wife? That makes no sense whatsoever, but that's the way we often work. So part of our journey is that we're going to be walking looking for wisdom, but it's not going to benefit us a bit. It's not going to do any good for us at all if we just discount it, shove it aside. Because it's going to take us to dig it out and work with it if it's going to benefit us in any way. And it's also in the process going to prove that he knows what he's talking about. The rest of the passage basically deals, with this idea that the wicked, and we're going to see this passage again because we're going to talk about wicked people a little bit. But he tries to tell his son, in this case, as Solomon's talking to his son, that if you follow my wisdom, then you're not going to fall into snares. Dad called me last night. I was talking to him on the phone. As we were talking about all kinds of things that were very unimportant, he says, well, my credit card got hacked. And I said, well, that's interesting. How did you find out? Via an email. And I thought, now, did you really get hacked, or is this what is it? Well, he says, they told me they'd send me a new card. I said, you know what you need to do, Dad? You need to turn your card over and call that number on the card and confirm that the email is real. It might have been legit. I don't know. I didn't read it, But it might also be like all the emails you get, and a lot of them aren't legit. And so how are you going to know? You turn the card over and I'll get around to it one of these days, he says. And I'm thinking, Dad, wake up. Here's a little tip of wisdom for you. Just call the number. It takes you 5 minutes. Well, I'll call them on Monday. I said, Dad, they're open 24/7 in India. All you got to do is call them and make sure you get somebody you can talk to, because they'll tell you whether it was legit or not. If it is, great, you're no problem, go on. But the reason they put the number on the back of the card is so that you can actually call them and you can say, is what's going on legit? And he's been having a little trouble with this lately. Is that not deep wisdom? Really hard wisdom, right? But no, we got it. Well, we'll wait till Monday, No, you don't wait till Monday on these things, Dad, and you don't answer emails, you're not like that. So, and you and me are all getting this stuff. It's coming via text, it's coming here, and it's there, and it's all touch this and touch that, and you know very good and well, most of it is illegitimate. The wicked, they take advantage, you see. Use a little wisdom is what the writer of Solomon is simply saying. So he goes into this little rant that we're going to see a lot of with Solomon, because this is poetry, remember. This is written in prose, so that's why it sounds funny. If you're reading it and you say, well, that sure sounds funny, it's because it's written in that way. Now, you don't realize that because English doesn't sing like Hebrew does, And I don't care what the translators do, they can't make it sing either. So what we end up with is what we end up with, but it sounds a little funny sometimes the way it is written. You will understand if you follow the wisdom, righteousness, justice, and equality, but these people are going to do their evil thing. It's okay. So our first passage offered the idea of seek wisdom, and we're going to have to do some digging for it. All right, Proverbs 3:13 through 20. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. Before we read any further, we're going to note this a few times. How many times Solomon uses the word blessed? Who are we so familiar with that uses the word blessed? Jesus, Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5. Blessed is this, and blessed is that, and blessed is here. What does the word blessed mean? Favor. Okay, yeah. What else? Joyful, okay? If we look at the word in itself, and it's very simplistic, but the word happy comes into mind. So guess what? If you follow God's wisdom, guess what you're going to have? Happy. That's what you're going to have. Or you could use the word joy. You follow God's joy, you're going to be happy. Dad, if you call the number and it was a scam, and they correct it, you're going to be happy. See? It's really that difficult. Otherwise, you may be on the hook for whatever the scam was, And I'm not too worried about Dad's situation, as far as them scamming him in that way, because he don't know anything anyway. But the reality of it is, you're going to be happy because you took this. It didn't take you 5 minutes, Just call it up and we're done. You're happy now, right? Right. Why, I'm on top of this now. What if you don't? You could be very sad. And it's really that simple. It's not that difficult when it comes to the book of Proverbs, because this is the way Solomon's going to handle the topics as we look at them. He's going to say, if you choose this kind of wife, you're going to be happy. If you don't choose this kind of wife, you're going to be miserable. How many marriages are miserable? New statistic out this morning, 67% are being divorced. How many marriages are miserable? Because they chose the wrong person somehow, or they didn't understand what they were doing, or whatever. Whatever their problems are. But the reality of it is, they didn't do it right, or there wouldn't be that problem, And you stand back and you think, well, yeah, the world's really messed up. How about 37% in what's called Christian? Tell me they listen to Solomon? They didn't listen to Solomon. Haven't any interest in it whatsoever. They just barreled on in their lives, and they found out they got themselves in some problems, because we didn't listen to simple wisdom. And sometimes we, of course, find ourselves in that particular situation as well. Okay, let's read. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. For the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. Where do you have your investments? Are they secure? How do you know? I would rather invest in God and wisdom, and I'm not nothing against people investing. Don't get me wrong. If you're invested in something, power to you. If you keep it all and you get to the end of retirement, good luck. I've known just as many people that did, just as many people who didn't. But I would suggest that the greater investment that is worth more than silver and gold is the wisdom of God. I would suggest that. In fact, I have lived my life based on that measure, and I am exceedingly blessed. And if you want to use the word happy, I am also exceedingly happy. And I have been happy for a long time because I believe in this with all my heart. And the things we're going to be looking at, I have re-examined these over and over and over. I try my best to live by what we're talking about. That's the way I govern my life, is by what we're reading and what we're looking at, by the very principles of Solomon. Okay, I keep talking and we need to read. She is more precious than jewels and more desirous. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. The Lord, by wisdom, founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. By his knowledge, the deeps broke open, and the clouds dropped down the dew. Isn't that, you can tell the poetical nature of it, right? I mean, you can kind of get a little flavor of it. English isn't completely Gaelic, but we get a little flavor of it in there, of this beautifulness that he puts together in this idea. Notice as we look at this, he uses the feminine pronoun, she is. And of course, he's talking to his son, all right? And so you can relate to the fact of how he's feeling in the idea of using the feminine and the male pronouns in the picture that are being offered. Look at the way Solomon shifts the rate of this investment that we're making in wisdom. He doesn't say you're going to be destitute. Now, maybe some will be, but he's not saying that. Notice he goes on to say that if you really embrace her, you're going to have all this other stuff too. You know, there's some New Testament passages that say that pretty frequently. What you sow, you will reap. You know, this type of thing. If you sow dishonesty, guess what? If you sow honesty, guess what? And if you're wondering where that's at, that's in Romans chapter 7 and in the beginning of chapter 8. And these types of pictures are painted by Solomon and offering the fact, look how glorious it is. You're looking at this gold and this silver and this perishable junk, and yet wisdom is glorious. Look how much you're going to avoid the unhappiness of life if you simply embrace the simplistic principles that I am going to tell you. Long life. The secret of long life. Now, are we talking about how old I get? Well, maybe. If I listen to certain wisdoms, I would say that probably I have a better chance of living older than others. You know, I mean, if you listen to certain things, it is reasonable that my dad told me, said when I got my first pickup truck, that when you leave a stop sign, it doesn't mean spin tires on the pavement. You know, and that's a reasonable piece of wisdom. And he said, if you do it often enough, guess what? You're going to ruin your tires. And so guess what I did? Ruin my tires, you know. So then I come back whining. Oh, the tires are broken. And what does he say? Good luck. You'll walk until you can pay for them. You know? And so they are. You're walking. Well, now I learned the lesson. I didn't spend tires on pavement no more. But I did a few times try to outrun some things in that pickup truck, and it never would go over 35 miles an hour. And when everybody's behind you, beep, 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 you know you need to lose them. You know, you need to wake up. You need to realize this thing don't go faster than 35 miles an hour. I don't care what gear you put it in. You know, and everybody else is going 60. So you got to watch it. The picture of simple wisdom says to us, long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. So in the right hand, long life. Are we going to be destitute? No. In her left hand, riches and honor, because you're honorable, because you have standards, because you're living by a principle, because you're walking by wisdom. Not only whether we're talking about wealth or not, which I would say probably we're not, but the reality of it is my honor, how valuable is it? You know. And so can go the picture. I would rather be an honorable man any day than a wealthy man. Any day. Okay? And my honor is very important to me. And people who have honor, you know the difference real quick. Right? All right. 4, 1 through 17. Hear, O sons, a father's instruction, and be attentive that you may gain insight. For I give you good precepts. Do not forsake my teaching. When I was assigned with my father, tender, the only one in the sight of my mother, He taught me and said to me, let your hearts hold fast my words, keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. That's a real fancy way of, he goes on, and Solomon's wonderful with words. He talks more than I do. But that whole section right there just simply says, will you please listen to me? Have any of you fathers ever said that to your children? Just simply, will you please sit right here and just listen to me? And sometimes it's even in a situation where we say something very simple, like, you don't have to listen to you don't have to do what I'm telling you, but would you please at least give me the right to tell you? I'm your father. I care for you more than anybody else. Would you at least listen? Now, they may go off and do what they want to do. They may trial and error it. They may do whatever they're going to. You can't always stop children, especially when they're adults. Best I can do in my house is lock the refrigerator. That's the best I can do. Great deterrent for all kinds of things in my house. The truth of it is, I joke about it, but I've never had to lock it yet. But the reality of it is, that's always on the side of my mind. If I want to get control of things, padlock, we're done. Everything will come under control real quick because we value the refrigerator in our house. And what's inside, of course. And I know that. You know why I know that? Because in the middle of the night, whenever somebody, I'm not going to tell you who it is, opens the door, that refrigerator squeaks. Okay? The door squeaks. And so, they're looking in and seeing what's in there. They don't get anything out. Don't get me wrong. They usually take them 3 or 4 goes before they figure out what's in there that they want. Because you hear the door go, and you're thinking, what's going on at 1 o'clock in the morning? They're looking in the refrigerator to see what's there. You see, is there something in there? And I keep thinking, why don't you just open it once and look and take an evaluation of things, No, can't do that. We got to, so it's kind of fun around our house. And that's all right. I don't mind that at all. But isn't it amazing how we as fathers, any father, have often found ourselves having to say just exactly what Solomon's saying, just maybe not as wordy, And I wish they would just listen sometimes. Just hear what I got to say. Then you can evaluate it. Now, in many cases, that's exactly what Solomon's going to do with his wisdom. He's just going to say, hey, listen to me. You're going to be better off if you do. I believe that. You see, and I believe that, but with Solomon's writing of the proverb. If you listen to him, you're going to be a whole lot happier camper. Okay. Do you have to listen to him? Nope, you don't. You can do anything you want to do. God gave you free will to do it. But I bet you at some point in your life, you're going to come back and wish you listened to Solomon. She is a tree. What happened? There's not a tree. Do not forsake her, and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this. Get wisdom, and whatever you get insight. Prize her highly, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a graceful garland. She will bestow on you a beautiful crown. Hear, my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the way of wisdom. I have led you in the paths of uprightness when you walk. Your steps will not be hampered, and if you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Do not enter the paths of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and press on. For they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. So one thing we're going to see, we're not going to say much else about this one because you can see how Solomon's almost like the other one we read. But notice the contrast, and we're going to see this throughout the book. You got her, the gloriousness of the wisdom of Solomon and God, and you got the other and how treacherous they are. You can see that in this kind of language where it comes down saying, you see, they can't even go to bed without doing someone harm before they do it. That's how treacherous they are. They're not going to sleep. They're not going to go home until they have hurt someone. That's the evil of it. That's what they're going to do. That's what their nature is. It says, but you're not that way. You're going to embrace her. How? Wholeheartedly. You see, you're going to embrace her with wholeheartedness. So we're also going to get this contrast, and I'll mention it here, but we're going to get this contrast like husband and wife, you see. What makes a marriage work? You embrace your wife wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly. Everything. You see, you embrace it. You embrace the relationship. Now, what about coming to Jesus? You see, you embrace it wholeheartedly, or it doesn't work right. The relationship's not correct. So we have this as an illustration as well. Okay. 10:23. Doing wrong is like a joke to a fool, but wisdom is pleasure to a man of upstanding. Very simple little passage. Doing wrong is like a joke. They make a joke of it, you know. I never have been in that realm too much, really, but in South America, they on the street corners, people gather, and they have a little thing. And I kept wondering what they're talking about, you know. I mean, I just out of curiosity. So I made friend with a grocer that was there that I'd gone inside a few times. So one day I just walked in there, and he was standing there not doing anything. I said, you know, I keep noticing these young men are all standing on the corner, and they're just talking, you know. I mean, just like any young people would. I said, I'm just curious to what they're saying. He says, oh, they're going over last night's exploits of who they killed. That's what they do on the corner. They go over it. They go over it. That's what wickedness does. So every night they're out pilfering and stealing and making havoc, and in the morning they're on the street corner talking about how wonderful it was. You see, making a joke of it. Just making a joke of it. Wisdom pronounces something completely different about it. 14:33. Wisdom rests in the hearts of a man of understanding, but it makes itself known even in the midst of fools. I like this one because it's very short, but I like it real well because notice what it says. Wisdom rests in the hearts of man of understanding, but it makes itself known. I would suggest that Solomon's saying that there's something about how we are created that God doesn't let us escape what's righteous, even if we're evil. Even the most evil person know they're still right and wrong to some extent. Simple example, you don't invite me to worldly parties. Well, you can invite me to worldly parties if you don't want worldly things to go on once I get there. I mean, I find it interesting. There's nothing more party crashing than a preacher attending a party. That's party crashing deluxe, okay? It really is. Because people, you know, and I don't know much about this because I don't get invited very much, and that's fine. I understand why. I cramp their style, right? But every once in a while, I'll get invited to something or another, you know, and they're normal, I guess you call them normal, you know, human beings in our world. So they got the booze, and they got their coarse joking going on, and there's cussing all over the place, and they're just being themselves, basically, in their thing. If you've ever worked in the world, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's just the way they are, okay? Not that they can't change, but that's where their parties are. And so then I enter the room. First time I heard somebody walk up and says, what do you do for a living? And I smile. You know, bright smile. Yeah. I am the preacher for the Church of Christ. And all of a sudden, this little wave begins to flutter across the room. You know? I mean, I've been at some, it's been so bad that as soon as I said what I did, all the booze disappears. I mean, literally, they're put it away. They'll start hiding it. It doesn't mean they're going to quit drinking it. I'm just saying they're hiding it, you know. And then you're talking to whoever you're talking to who's got a bucket mouth, and they have always had a bucket mouth, and all of a sudden, all you hear from there is, and then you start getting apologized to by everybody, you know. Well, I'm sorry for my French. I said, that's not French. I know enough French to know that isn't French. Okay? I mean, you know, and it really is miraculous. And, you know, then they can't wait to figure out a way to get rid of me because they want to get back to their party, you know. And that's when the preacher needs a Coke, right? You know, I mean, he's going to go socializing amongst the group because I don't leave that easy. You know, I mean, I came, you invited me, here I am. Guess what? You're going to have an unhappy party. But that's not my problem, you know. Is it not true? They know the difference. They don't want to do different, but they know the difference. You see, when I talk to somebody on the phone and they find that I'm a preacher, all of a sudden their language changes. They know better, but they're not going to do better in their own peer group. Quite interestingly, Solomon deals with that a great deal. That even, even the wicked and their greatest fools of all, they know the difference. They're not ignorant about God, you see. They're only purposely hiding it some way or playing with it in some way. Okay, 15:14. The heart of mine who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fool feed on folly. Same type of thinking. We're not going to say anything else about it, do we? I mean, it's the same scenario. Proverbs 16:16, Proverbs 16:22. How much better to get wisdom than gold? To get understanding is to be chosen rather than silver. Good sense is the foundation of life to him who has it, but the instruction of fools is folly. Good sense. Actually, one translation says common sense. You see, you really wonder sometimes whether people have much of that anymore. In some cases, just common. Yeah, it's very uncommon, you know. But just common sense, you know. I mean, there are some things I think that if we did stop ourselves just a moment and think about it, we might not do whatever we're about to do quite as rashly as we might normally do it, because we have some sense of why it's not appropriate in some way. Proverbs 17:16 and 18:15. Why should a fool have money in his hand to buy wisdom when he has no sense? Isn't that interesting? Good verse. An intelligent heart equates knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. The intelligent. Notice the connection between them. Intelligence and wisdom. The intelligent. You may have nothing financially, but that doesn't mean you're not intelligent. You see, the intelligent seek the wisdom of God. Some of the most uneducated preachers in the brotherhood were not educated in the world. You know, they didn't have degrees. They didn't go to college. Marshall Keeble, one of the great black preachers of our brotherhood, he didn't make it past third grade. But he was a magnificent biblical scholar and preacher in his own right. But he never had an education beyond what little bit he learned there. He learned enough to read and write and then taught himself the rest. And they taught himself the rest from the book of wisdom. And it sustained him. An intelligent heart acquires knowledge in the ear of those who seek knowledge. 23:12. Whoever gets sense loves his own soul. He who keeps understanding will discover good. Not only the idea of receiving or wanting wisdom, but there's discoveries to be found. Isn't that part of the beauty of it? There is discoveries to be found. Apply your heart to instruction and your ear to words of knowledge. Well, Brother Rick, last person I expected to see this morning. How's Brother Rick this morning? Good to see you, Rick. That's okay. We don't mind. We're just about to finish up here, Rick, and then we'll visit a minute. 23:22-25. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice, and he who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. Notice some of the things about the wisdom of this one here. It makes your family happy. You see, it makes your family happy. How many parents would be a whole lot happier if their children would listen to them? I mean, knowing that what you're offering is for their best. I mean, knowing that what you're saying is wise. I'm not suggesting that they should be happy with you if you give them bad wisdom. But the reality of it still is, this idea, Solomon offers the idea of saying, well, isn't this wonderful that they're ecstatic about what you're doing because you're following a path of wisdom. Nothing breaks a father and mother's heart more in the church, if I'm talking about the Lord's church, than to see their children go off into sin. Nothing hurts them more. it just tears them up. They may be quiet, and they may think that's the best policy. In some cases it may be. But nothing hurts the parents more than something like that. Okay, last one of our, well, not quite. We're almost there. Last one of our, oh no, not quite. Almost. Okay, we'll get there. By wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. My son, eat honey, for it is good, and the drippings of the honeycomb are sweet to your taste. Know that wisdom is such to your soul if you find it. There will be a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Don't you like the proverb when he uses this idea of honey? What does honey taste like? Sweet. You know, it's real sweet. In fact, it's a little different kind of sweetness than sugar. But in a sense, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but if I take a spoon of sugar and take a spoon of honey, which lasts longer? The honey. Why? It's thick. You got to, this kind of thing, you know? But it has a different flavor to it. It has also other properties in it that are good for us. Okay, final one for our section, and we'll quit. Surely I am too stupid to be a man. I have not the understanding of a man. I have not learned wisdom, or have I knowledge of the Holy One. Who has ascended to heaven and come down? Who has gathered the winds in the fist? Who has wrapped up the waters in the garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? Who is his name? And what is his son's name? Surely you know. That's the last part of this first one. But note the fact that this is messianic prophecy. Here. You can't miss it. Okay? So even in Proverbs, notice that Solomon, and this one's very distinct, not only the statement of how great God is, but it says plainly, you know the name of his son, you know, and that's who we follow, Jesus the Christ. All right, so our next section next week, we'll pick up with both wisdom and folly attracts use in your booklet there on page 2 if you want to read ahead a little bit. And then we will proceed with our study on wisdom next Sunday morning. Thank you very much.